Hello, everybody. Dog Life Radio coming at you, and I am your host, Rossi Giugio. So, this week, I get to have an interesting conversation with another professional strength athlete. What made this one different was, thank you, Johnny and the boys, but this one, the difference here was this was with professional strong woman and trainer coach Brittany Diamond. Brittany is a Pro-Strongwoman out of Massachusetts. Let's see, how I found or met Brittany was through the internet, of course. I think maybe it was connected through Starting Strength or Strong Talk, something along those lines. Cale Beck's work. Anyway, started following her, and what made me want to reach out to her to have a conversation was not only just her love of strength, sports, and training, but her real commitment to being herself, being true to herself. She's a strong woman. That balance of feminine and strength, and not shy about saying, you know what, I am a strength athlete and I am a woman. It was interesting to me, so I wanted to reach out and have a conversation. And she was gracious enough to give me a little bit of her busy, hectic schedule. Had a chance to catch up with her a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. But again, I love being able to promote and talk to people who are, I don't want to say breaking down barriers, but just promoting their own stereotype, where they are unique and people can connect with them. So I have a young daughter myself, and I love the idea of her doing anything she wants, being able to grow up in a world where there's people like Brittany who she wants to be a strength athlete, and nobody's going to stop her. So it's fantastic. She can be anything that she wants. Talking about Brittany and my daughter, so it's awesome. It was a great conversation. Hopefully, you find it entertaining and enlightening. So with that, before I go on and release the hounds of that conversation, just a couple of things, just in case the audio at the end of the conversation cuts out. Brittany is at BDimes, that's BDIMEZ training.com, and the same BDimes with the Z on Instagram and Facebook. She has 3 sponsors that we want to throw out there. SBD, a market leader in supports, clothing, and accessories for lifting. AccuMobility, all kinds of fantastic mobility tools, as well as Play Again Now, recovery supplements. Those are her 3 sponsors, so thank you to those 3 entities. Thank you very much. And one last piece, I'm going to pay a couple of bills, so thank you very much. Enjoy the conversation, peeps. Peace. Hey, thanks for supporting the show. Remember to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all at Dog Life Radio. Help me spread the good word too, so share the links on whatever social media you prefer. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, or follow it on Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, or wherever you're listening. So throw up a 4-star or 4-cloud or whatever. Thank you very much. It's the best way to help others find the podcast. And as always, send me any feedback. I would love to hear from you. dogliferadio@yahoo.com. On with the show.
All right, we're live. This is Dog Life Radio, and this is Rossi Giugio here with very, very special guest today. We've got Brittany Diamond on the line. She's a professional strongwoman, coach, trainer, and a whole bunch more. Brittany, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
This is great. I was really looking forward to having a conversation with you. So I know I gave you a little bit of background on the podcast and how we're health and fitness focused. I do love strongman and strongwoman conversations. I love watching it. I keep in touch with that type of community as well, even do a little bit of that training myself. But I thought your story was so interesting, and I was really excited to have you come on.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a great sport. You know, the people I've met, you know, always meeting new people, even you. It's just amazing that what the community has led me to. So I'm thankful all the time.
You know, I think maybe it kind of dips into what we were talking about before we started recording is, you know, you're not going to become a bazillionaire doing strongman, strongwoman type of training, and maybe that helps promote that type of actual family and bonding where you see a lot of camaraderie amongst the competitors and fans. Even the biggest rivals still do have that type of camaraderie.
Absolutely. No, definitely. I'm friends with my competitors at the top level, which is great. It's a very much individual sport, but it's almost like you have a whole team behind you.
That's so cool. So a nice softball for you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into strongman stuff?
Absolutely. So I have been athletic my whole life. I was an avid runner when I was younger, and then I went to University of Rhode Island. I was a Division I rower. I did that because, unfortunately, due to a hamstring injury, I couldn't really sprint anymore without, risking re-tearing the injury every single time. So I did some research, and I found out that you could actually get an athletic scholarship if you were good enough to be, a novice rower. You could earn a scholarship your second year. So I did that, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really crazy about the sport of rowing just because it's the same thing every day, but I fell in love. We had a strength and conditioning coach that we met with about 3 times a week. And, I had lifted before in high school kind of for fun, like not really knowing what I was doing, more like bicep curls and just stuff like that. But it was the first time I was introduced to the hang clean and the front squat. It's primarily what we did for rowing. Of course, a lot of rowing, dumbbell barbell rows. I just fell in love with the whole process of, the strength world and started researching it myself. And then I actually worked in a few gyms throughout the summer when I was in college. And I just fell in love. I actually worked in a gym when I was younger. When I was 16, I used to teach a spin class over at the Cape Ann YMCA. And then I moved to Boston after school. I'm not far from here originally. And I saw that they had a novice strongwoman show. And I said, I think I'll do that. Novice seems to usually work really well for me in every other sport I tried. And why not give it a go? And I was pretty much instantly hooked after my first show. I was like, wow, I think I am naturally pretty strong. My background with rowing gave me the endurance that you also need for some of the events. And I just fell in love, and that was 3 years ago, and it just kind of blew up from there.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned the endurance portion of strongman events and training, where I think a lot of times the common to not so common fan of strongman, kind of just generally thinks of those gigantic hulking individuals that they see on TV flipping cars, and they're 400 pounds, and they're thinking about Thor Bjornsson, the guy from Game of Thrones, and realizing that they actually have to move around a little bit too. It's not just picking up a giant rock and so forth. There's a lot of movement with it.
Absolutely, and that's one thing, I've used my platform on social media to try and educate people because, if I'm just walking in the grocery store at a gym, oftentimes people think, oh, are you a bodybuilder, or, are you an Olympic sprinter, or, what do you do? And I say, no, I do strongwoman, and they're instantly kind of like, really? I thought, and they're afraid to say it, but usually I say something along the lines of, I thought strongman were kind of unathletic and big, and I say, no, we have to be able to have agility and move around. Look at some, like you said, you talked about Thor, or, better known as the Mountain on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
If you really look at his Instagram, he is all muscle. He's 6'7", however much he weighs, probably almost 400, but he's all muscle, and that man, he can move fast.
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge trend in strongman. Probably at all the levels, but you're seeing people kind of strip off that gigantic layer of fat that has, kind of historically been there. I had a great conversation with an Australian strongman not too long ago, and he's going through the exact same thing himself in that space geographically. You're seeing, I think it was Travis Ortmeyer or Terry Hollins, one of the two. Just some before and after pictures as well, where it's you have to be lean because you have to move.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, I think it was kind of more old school when people thought, the more you weigh, the more you'll be able to lift, which to some extent might be true for things like deadlift. But I honestly, because I try to stay within my weight class, but sometimes I'll gain 10 pounds or so, and yes, maybe it does help my deadlift or overhead a little bit, but then I just feel horrible. Like, I don't feel like I perform well. I don't feel like I recover as fast, and believe it or not, I actually do a lot of cardio, more so than people would think.
So absolutely. Let's talk about that just a little bit, because I know for any of the listeners that follow you on Instagram, there's all kinds of pictures of you lifting extremely heavy weights, stones, the Husafel, everything. Talk a little bit about some of the cardio that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I try as much as I can to make my conditioning work as strongman specific as possible. So a lot of sled pushes, sled pulls, ropes, and things like that. But sometimes, I have a career, and sometimes I'm just under a time crunch. So I'll honestly just go for a run early in the morning, or sometimes I'll just go to the gym, do the Stairmaster or the elliptical, just something to keep me moving, for maybe a half hour to 45 minutes, because I oftentimes find that if I'm lifting heavy at night, it does help me recover faster if I do some just steady state cardio the next morning. Not every single session has to be extremely intense. I usually try and keep my intense conditioning for right after I lift, and then do, like I said, more steady state on my either off days or in the mornings of the days I'm going to lift.
Yeah, absolutely. Love seeing the well-rounded approach to things, because I think that's kind of that trend where you're seeing, these giant, girth of people where, you got to be able to move. You may win that one event that requires the complete and total static strength, but there's multiple events. There's generally carrying, there's generally moving, so there's going to be something there that, requires you got to step around. And if you can't touch your toes, it's, not really functional, is it?
No, exactly. That's totally true. And also, I've been immersed in the health and fitness industry since I was younger. And, you have to move to be healthy, but also I do care what I physically look like. And I know many people say, like, oh, I don't care what I look like, I just want to be strong. But oftentimes I feel like that's not true, because who honestly doesn't want to look good? I mean. No,
this is a good point. Very good point.
I feel like someone's lying if they say, I don't care what I look like, because at the end of the day, you probably do. And obviously you should place, your heart health first and foremost, because I don't care how strong you are, you can have a heart attack if you're not, using that, the heart. So.
No, that's one of the things that caught my eye about your background and where you were coming from was about breaking the stereotypes in that space. Caring about what you look like, obviously that's one piece of it, but breaking stereotypes in the strongman, I guess, culture, where to your point earlier when you were saying, no, I'm not a bodybuilder, no, I'm not a sprinter, I'm a strongman, and yes, I'm a woman that's a strongman. And being able to be strong as well as feminine is one of these things that I don't think we can talk about enough.
Exactly, and I will say the sport of strongwoman itself has come a long way, just even in the last 3 years since I've been in it, because I used to get so much attention saying, people like, oh, you don't look like a strong woman. And that was kind of my mission, to show other women, you can do this. And I have a lot of clients that are just as quote-unquote girly. I hate to use that terminology, but I guess feminine would be a better way to describe them. And it's just, I do take a sense of pride in the sense that I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Like, I've influenced these women to show them that they can do this and, still remain feminine. You're not going to – it takes a lot of work to put, massive amounts of muscle on. It's not just going to happen overnight. And I often laugh when people say negative comments like, oh, I don't want to do what you do because you're way too big. And I literally just laugh to myself, because I'm like, all right, I've been working at this for like 8 years, so it's not going to happen.
I love hearing that one myself. Not that I can, lift the weights that you lift, but I will say, you hear that a lot from women when they get into weightlifting. I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get too big. And it's like, all I can think of in my head is, damn, I've been trying to get bigger my whole life. And I've been lifting for 25, maybe even 30 years now. So it's that eternal chasing where it is not an easy thing to do.
And it's so funny, because now I sort of think like people don't think like that, especially because, everyone I'm connected with on the internet is, usually in my sport or powerlifting or bodybuilding or something, so they don't think like that. But then there's oftentimes I'll go to a commercial gym and I just listen to people's conversations, And it's kind of like, oh, wow, we really are still kind of stuck. You know, people do think that they're going to instantly, you know, gain 20 pounds of muscle if they start lifting or do anything other than, you know, lightweight. And I kind of, sometimes depending on the person, I'll interrupt and, you know, give my 2 cents and try to educate them a little bit, but sometimes it's just, you know, it's just not worth it. But
it's you pick and choose your battles, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think like little things like this, I think the more that you can expose it, the more that we can talk about it, the freer it becomes. It's this thing where it's like, you know what, I want to go compete in strongman. It doesn't matter if I'm a man or a woman, if I'm young or if I'm old. Let's just go do it.
Exactly, no, and that's another important thing. I actually have a client who's in her 40s, and she just started exercising a couple of years ago, and she just started competing this year, and, you know, she's hitting PRs, and, of course, you know, when you're a little bit older, you have to take, you know, there's different steps. You have to, you know, have more time off and extra recovery, but, you know, there's no, you can do it. It doesn't matter how old you are, and it also doesn't matter, you know, if you've had injuries, there's ways to work around it. There really are.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm going to be okay with the fact that you referenced somebody in their 40s as older, because I am in my 40s, and believe me, I know what it's like. I used to do powerlifting when I was much younger, and I could jump right into heavy weights where it takes a bit longer to get there these days.
Yeah, and I think that's another important, you know, something else I try and preach is to start when you're young, because the younger you start, you know, if you're someone that's 17, you have healthy habits, it's going to be that much easier to carry it on and live a healthy life as you know, it's obvious you can start lifting at 55, but it's obviously going to, like you said, it's going to be a little bit harder if you than if you had like a 30-year background doing it.
Oh, absolutely. That's something that it's like one of those things you look back and go, man, I just learned all this new stuff about nutrition in, you know, the last 5 to 8 years. I wish I had been eating like this since I was 17. I can't even imagine what kind of shape I'd be in. Or
exactly,
something along
but
those
then again,
lines.
Never too late to start. That's what I always say. I'm like, you can do it. So.
No, that's the end all right there. It's never too late to start. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition, since I just referenced that piece. In terms of your diet, when you're talking about kind of maintaining at the same weight class, like you're competing in the middleweight class, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Now, so just for me as well, what is that weight range in that weight class? Even though I just violated this is a old family rule of mine. Being an old Italian from an old Italian family, they always say you never ask a woman their age, how much they make, or how much they weigh. And I just asked you and I just broke that third rule.
Oh, no, I think all rules you know, I've written articles about my weight. I think it's something that's really important to talk about, and no female should be ashamed of it. But the weight range for my weight class is 140 to 180. But with that being said, now that I'm a professional, I would say I can't honestly think of one person that doesn't have a weight cut to get to 180. So we're definitely all, you know, at the top of our weight class. When I was an amateur, you know, there might be a couple scattered, you know, 160s, 170s, but I would say, yeah, I think 100% of us just try and stay to 180. So.
Yep. So do you now, in order to stay around there, what types of foods are you eating? Do you kind of prescribe to any specific, I don't know, diet, like keto? Do you well-rounded? What's your approach?
Yeah, so my approach to diet is a lot like my training and just my approach to life, and I am a firm believer in balance. Luckily, you know, my entire life I've been pretty health conscious. I don't have any allergies or anything, so I eat just a well-balanced diet. But of course, you know, I do try and track everything, but again, sometimes I like a mental break, and I competed at the Olympia about 2.5 weeks ago, and it's just now that I feel ready to start tracking and everything again, because sometimes I just need a mental break, to be honest with you. So overall, my diet on training days, I'll be a little more calorie and carb dense. Typically, I try and keep my numbers at about 25 to 2,600 calories and anywhere from about 200 to 300 grams of carbs, most of those coming from things like oats or rice, and then some fast-acting carbs. Maybe I'll do a Rice Krispie treat or an apple around my training. But in general, I'm pretty healthy. Lots of, real foods as much as I can, which can get difficult when I'm traveling for work. But, I try and pack my food or at least stop and make good choices. The salt intake when you're traveling can be pretty tough. But
yeah, absolutely. You mentioned something that's kind of spanned across, I think, everything, whether you're in low carb, keto, well-rounded, whatever, carb loading. That you mentioned kind of natural, earth-grown types of approaching it from the perspective of that got to stay away from the processed stuff, period, whether you're going to eat nothing but fats and protein or whatever your approach is. And it seems like that's definitely more than just a trend in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, once in a while, my whole thing is I'd rather do real foods, but, sometimes I'm just, I'm too busy, I'm in a rut, didn't have time to prep all my food. I will grab things like a complete protein cookie or things like that to snack on, but most of the time I do try and do real food. And when I'm really, like if I have a weight cut or something, or if I'm trying to lean out for a photo shoot or something, that's when I do more like fish or just chicken, and I'll kind of cut carbs a little bit. But luckily, every body is very different, but my body loves carbs. Like I respond better to having high carbs in my diet than I do when I cut them, just energy-wise, looks-wise, all of that. So I'm lucky in that sense. But again, I'm not eating carbs like cereal or ice cream and junk like that all the time. It's usually, like you said, healthier, lower sugar carbs.
Yeah, that seems to be the good path to take. In terms of other foods, do you take any supplements, vitamins, minerals, herbs, whatever, anything along those lines?
I do, yes. I take So Play Again Now is something that my coach, Eric Dawson, had recommended to me, and then I started taking them. It's actually a drink supplement, which is nice. It has the hyaluronic acid in it, and that's something, I've posted it on my social media before. I'm actually sponsored by them now, which is awesome. So I take that every day, along with things like probiotics, digestive enzymes. If there's a certain day where I haven't gotten enough greens in, I'll take like a green powder with some wheatgrass in it. And then something else that I swear by that was recommended to me that I do take right before I lift, I take creatine, but I also take something called Tribulus, which is a natural testosterone booster, as well as maca powder. Not year-round. I take it more because it's expensive, but I take it more before heavy lifts or when I'm in season, getting ready for a big competition. Those have helped a lot. But, yeah, I probably, other than that, just a multivitamin, CLA, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Excellent. Now, heavily full gain into strong woman sports. You're doing all the training. You're doing all the different events. This one's one of my favorite questions to talk about. Is what's your favorite event to do?
Oh, my gosh. What's my favorite event? I feel like I love pretty much everything except overhead. My favorite event is probably, I like anything that is a max distance carry, which I don't often have those anymore. And I like those because I feel like there's a type of event that, not only is it physically demanding, but it's mentally grueling. Mm-hmm. And it kind of reminds me of my rowing days, because rowing is simply just, the lactic acid builds up, and it's just building up that mental pain threshold and talking to yourself. And I feel like I'm really, really good at mentally just persevering through that type of pain. So, yeah, anything max distance carry, which can be, it's usually a sandbag or a Husafel or a yoke. I've even seen that before, just anything like that.
That's cool. So on your Instagram, I think a couple of posts ago, I saw you were carrying the Husafel stone, or a version of the Husafel stone. Do you know the legend or the story behind the Husafel stone?
In Iceland?
Yes.
Yeah, of course, because it's so funny because people always spell it wrong, and I always try and spell it right just because, obviously autocorrect doesn't know what a Husafel is, but I try to be respectful of the whole culture and all of that, and that's why I also think, the Husafel is a pretty cool event just because of the history behind it. People don't know, what is that? Is that a coffin? And
yeah. I think I love that one because going all the way back, it was like it was a goat farmer who was trying to make a gate for his pen, and so he took the stone and used it. And there's the story surrounding it is about his daughter that used to carry the stone around the whole pen for the full distance. Not his son or not him, but it was his daughter. So I think that's awesome.
I do too. I love that.
And so that kind of goes into what we were talking about with the stereotypes and breaking down the walls, and really how you seem to embrace this role model type part in this aspect of the fitness world, or this culture of the fitness world, blending muscle and femininity in it. Now, it couldn't have been easy the entire time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was easy then.
That's funny. But kind of going back what you said about the role model thing, that's actually how I started B-Dime's training, because people were just asking me questions, and it's kind of crazy what you can do with the internet now, and Instagram especially. I mean, that's how, you and I actually got connected, but people were just asking me questions, and then I used to do in-person training, and I loved it, but obviously how am I going to train someone in person if they're all the way across, in Switzerland? So
yep.
That's when I decided to start B-Dime's training, and obviously it's, there's pros and cons about training someone remotely. It's harder for me, because instead of just explaining something, I have to get really creative and show them and write it all down, and different people learn different ways, so I always try multiple ways to see how the client is going to grasp something. So that's it's been an awesome learning process. It's been great because I've been able to connect with people all over. It started with just females, and then I recently started working with males too. And I love working. I limit it to just aspiring competitors or someone that's already competed, because I was doing your average everyday person just looking to get healthy at first. But then I was like, no, strongman is my passion. That's what I really need to focus on.
Very cool. So I would imagine by going through and training, there's always things that things you're learning along the way, especially when you're helping others start from the ground up as well.
Absolutely. I learned so much just from, watching other people's videos, seeing how they respond to different things, and I think it is so important that you have a coach, because even me, I've tried to do my own programming, and, I have a tendency to over-push myself, and I told my coach, I was like, his name's Eric Dawson, Pro-Strongwoman, I tell him, I'm like, I always think I can do my own programming, and then I feel guilty when I don't take my deloads and things like that, so it's just so much easier to have a coach, because, they can see you in a different light that you don't see yourself. So I think that's really important.
It's funny how you're a professional, all this stuff, but you have to have a coach. And, I've heard that so many different times from other professionals as well. That's the reason why they have a coach. They generally just don't want to think about it. I want to show up and I want to do work.
Exactly. And, I do my own programming in the off season and things like that. But when I'm about, 6 to 8 weeks out of a competition, I just tell my coach, all right, write something for me, and oftentimes what he'll give me is much, much less work than I'd actually give myself, because, I just naturally, being a rower, I have an ability, I'm just an overtrainer, so it's kind of nice when I put the trust in someone else, just like my clients do with me, because then I'm not worrying about it, I'm not overstressing, should I have programmed this instead, or should I have done 65%, not 70%, or and then even sometimes I'll talk to him and I'll say, well, I think I should do this instead, or, sub this out, and, and he's always open to discussion. And, I think a good coach, you learn from each other. I think it's very important to be open-minded, because there's not one right way to do something, and with the evolution of, different theories and methodologies to training, you always have to keep that open mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Now, did your coach travel with you to the Olympia last month?
He didn't come to the Olympia last month just because he is going to the other Vegas competition for the amateurs. He has a lot of athletes in that. But he did come to the Arnold with me these past 2 years, and it was awesome because he was there when I received my pro card this past March. And just, having him there is really special to me. He's my coach, but he's also a mentor and almost like a dad to me. I'm really close with. his wife and his 2 daughters. He's more like family to me than a coach, to be honest.
That's awesome. That's an awesome relationship to have.
Yeah. He's really close. Like, I think that's why we, part of the strongman community is I think Eric took it upon himself when he opened up his gym, Titan Barbell. He only has 2 rules in his gym. 1 is to clean up after yourself, and 2 is, to make it a positive training atmosphere and treat everyone equally, which having him as a coach has made me not only a great athlete, but a great person and a great coach, too. It's like I learned from the best, so I'm really happy that I was able to, meet him along my journey.
It's funny how you said the 2 rules, the first one being clean up after yourself. I was just listening to Strong Talk, Cale Beck's podcast, and he was interviewing Matt over from Lightning Fitness down in Connecticut, and he gets all bent out of shape when stuff gets left out too. I don't know maybe there's a pattern we're seeing here.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that just goes hand in hand with respect to clean up after yourself, obviously, so the next person has to do it.
Absolutely. It's a discipline thing, right? Discipline, organization, structure, going in and doing it. Yeah. So talking about the Olympia, congratulations. You had a great showing out there. This was your first professional competition?
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I was really happy. That was actually the shortest prep I've ever done. It was supposed to be 4 weeks. Ended up only being 2 weeks because I had a little, I have, like everyone in strongman, everyone has an injury they can aggravate. And my lower back, after some disc herniations a couple of years ago, it's just one of those things. If I sneeze the wrong way or look the wrong way, it gets thrown out. So I actually took a 2-week deload before this competition. So I was nervous, but at the same time, I knew I'd been training, and now that I've been doing the sport so long, I've learned that as long as I keep up my static strength and keep up my endurance, I'm not just going to forget how to do an event. So.
Yep, absolutely.
Before when I was an amateur, I would do a 10 to 12-week contest-specific prep where I was touching every implement I'd be using, at least once a week, and now it's kind of like, all right, like, I would say the log is probably the one implement because it's so, the muscles it uses is so different and it's so technical that's the one piece of training equipment I do try and use year-round. But, if I only touch a yoke or a sandbag, a couple times before a contest, then I'm not really stressed about it because I know that, I've been doing my work in and out of the gym for so many years that as long as I'm smart, and know how to pick up the implement, I will be, good that day.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. So that's I think pretty damn impressive results for coming in, performing the way you did at that one for your first one, and especially at the strongest woman in the world at the Olympia.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we've been talking a little while about your whole journey and everything. What's next? What's coming up for you?
So next I have in December, the week before Christmas, I have the big Train Strongman show, which is also, it's a little confusing how the different titles are, but this one is World's Strongest Woman. I'm pretty sure that's the official name of it, rather than Strongest Woman in the World, I'm pretty sure. So I have that, which has weight classes, which is great. And then in March, I'll have the Arnold Pro Show, which is the only one that does not have any weight classes. So I'll be against, the girls that are typically heavyweights. We all mesh together, which I think is just awesome. Because that's exactly what the men do. And it just goes to show you, who's the strongest. So I'm really excited about everything I have coming up.
That's awesome. Fantastic stuff. Now, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with me. Before we wrap up, is there anybody you want to plug? You mentioned you've got a sponsor. I know you've got websites, Instagram, so please plug everything and anything.
Of course, yes. So, of course, as I talked about, Eric Dawson, owner of Titan Barbell, first and foremost, he's going to introduce me to the sport and help me with everything. So him, and then AccuMobility, which is the most amazing mobility tools on the market. I literally travel with them everywhere I go, even just in my car from day-to-day activities. Play Again Now, which I also talked about, helping keep me in one piece. And then I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is _Dimez, DIMEZ. And then I have a link in my bio of my website. If anyone's interested in signing up for a competition, definitely let me know. I can help you out, point you in the right direction. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you so much again for taking the time to talk with me. So thank you, Barry.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. And that wraps up yet another episode of Dog Life Radio. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I had enjoyed having that conversation. So, again, in closing, please remember, send me some feedback, drop me a review, subscribe. You know all the ways to do it. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.